Black holes are one of the most exciting topics in astrophysics, with scientists discovering more and more of them all the time. But black holes may be even stranger than science fiction suggests. What happens if you fall into one? What if an entire solar system falls in? And what would it look like to travel through a wormhole? Today we're answering these questions and more. So let's get started. To really understand how strange black holes are, we need to first know how they work. A black hole is basically a region in space where gravity is so strong that not even light can escape its pull. This region is called the event horizon, and once something crosses it, there's no turning back. The boundary of the black hole is defined by a spherical surface called the Schwarzschild radius. If you could shrink this sphere until it had a diameter of 1 inch, the gravity at its surface would be thousands times stronger than Earth's gravity. But what if you were to fall into a black hole? As you approach the event horizon, time slows down for you, relative to an observer far away from the black hole. This means that the closer you get to the center of a black hole, the slower time passes. If you fell into one, time would eventually stop completely at the event horizon. It would take an infinite amount of time to actually cross the boundary, according to an outside observer. That means if you were falling into a black hole, you wouldn't get any closer to it, because time itself would prevent you from doing so. But since time stops at the event horizon, you wouldn't know that you'd hit it. You'd simply find yourself getting pulled toward an infinite density, which is impossible. We do and know exactly what would happen if you fell into a black hole, because our physics breaks down at that point. But that hasn't stopped some brave souls from trying to imagine what it might be like. In his book, A Brief History of Time, Stephen Hawking suggested that if you were to fall into a black hole, you'd be met with a wall of fire. This is because as you approach the event horizon, the gravitational forces on your body would become so great that it would be torn apart and atomized. Then, as you crossed the event horizon and began falling toward the center of the black hole, the temperature of the fire would increase until it reached millions of degrees Celsius. Eventually, you'd be completely burned up, and your atoms would be scattered to the winds. Of course, if you survived this, you wouldn't be able to do much. Falling further into the black hole, you'd eventually reach the singularity where the density and gravity become infinite. At this point, everything would be crushed together into a tiny space, and your body would be utterly destroyed. Another possibility is that when you fell into a black hole, you'd be met with an intense burst of gamma rays. These are the highest energy form of light, and they could easily kill you instantly. Or maybe you'd be spaghettified. This is a technical term that means your body would be stretched out into a long, thin noodle. This would happen because the gravitational forces near a black hole are so strong that they literally pull your body apart from top to bottom. All of these scenarios are certainly gruesome, but they're also entirely speculative. The truth is, we don't know exactly what would happen if you fell into a black hole. Our physics breaks down at the event horizon, so anything can happen at that point. But what if an entire solar system fell into a black hole? Well, here's the thing. Solar system can't really fall into a black hole in the first place. Black holes only have mass within their event horizons. Once something crosses the event horizon, it can never escape, not even light. So if you had a solar system that was far enough away from a black hole, nothing would happen to it. The gravity of the black hole would be too weak to affect the planets, stars, or other objects in the solar system. However, if the two were close enough, then the black hole's gravity would start to affect the objects in the solar system. If the black hole was close enough to the star, it would start to pull it toward the event horizon. If the planet was close enough to the star, it would be pulled along with it. And if it got too close, the same would happen to the planet. Eventually, the entire solar system would collapse into the black hole and be destroyed. Now, what if you fell into a wormhole? Wormholes are hypothetical tunnels that connect to different points in space-time. They're essentially shortcuts that allow you to travel faster than light. While they haven't been proven to exist, they're a popular staple of science fiction. In fact, many sci-fi stories feature wormholes as a way to travel to distant worlds or galaxies. But what would a wormhole actually look like? Well, that depends on where you were looking. If you were looking into the mouth of a wormhole, you'd see the same things you'd see if you were looking into a black hole: stars, nebulae, galaxies. All of these objects would be distorted and stretched out by the intense gravity near the wormhole. But as you got closer to the event horizon, the view would become more and more chaotic. You'd see matter being spaghettified and torn apart by the gravitational forces. You might see bursts of gamma rays or other forms of radiation. And as you finally cross the event horizon, you'd be met with a view of the singularity at the center of the black hole. On the other hand, if you were looking out of the wormhole, you'd see the universe as it would appear from far away. You'd see stars, galaxies, nebulae. All of these objects would be much dimmer and smaller than they appeared from inside the wormhole, because you'd be seeing them from much farther away. If you were able to see far enough, you might even see the edge of the universe. But what would it be like to actually go through a wormhole? Well, that depends on the type of wormhole. Some wormholes are traversable, meaning that you can travel through them without being destroyed. Others are not. If you were to attempt to travel through a non-traversable wormhole, you'd be met with the same things you'd see if you were looking into the wormhole. You'd see stars and galaxies being distorted and stretched out by the intense gravity. You'd see matter being torn apart and spaghettified. And as you got closer to the event horizon, the view would become more and more chaotic. Eventually, you'd be met with a view of the singularity and be destroyed. However, if you were to travel through a traversable wormhole, you'd be in for a much more pleasant experience. In fact, it would feel like you were taking a trip through space, except you'd be able to see the universe in all of its glory. You'd be able to see stars, galaxies, nebulae, and perhaps even other universes. Of course, this is all just speculation because we've never actually seen a wormhole, let alone traveled through one. Some astronomers believe that wormholes could be out there, but they're extremely rare. Others believe that they're impossible. Only time will tell if we ever discover these mysterious objects. But one thing's for sure. If we ever do, it'll be one of the greatest discoveries in human history. It's easy to think of black holes as purely destructive, and that's true. They can rip apart stars and entire solar systems. But they're also incredibly useful. We use them to power our spacecraft and even to generate electricity. Okay, we don't do this ourselves, but NASA has plans to do it soon. Black holes are one of the most exciting topics in astrophysics, with scientists discovering more and more of them all the time. But black holes may be even stranger than science fiction suggests. Now check out scientists just net zero gravity on Earth for the first time or watch this video instead.